I was 3 years old and camping in Oregon's Mount Jefferson wilderness with my large family and our friends. I don't remember toddling away from camp, but I do remember the luminescent ice cave and my sense of extraordinary wonder as I crawled into its deepest recess where the translucent blue encompassed me. The cave's interior had slowly melted out over the summer, forming ridges and dips in its walls like the crests and troughs of waves. The chilled air bathed my cheeks, and the meltwater on the cave's floor soaked into my corduroy pants. I remember feeling utterly content. My serenity was ruined by the appearance of several agitated adult faces at the mouth of the ice cave. I was shocked that they considered me lost and now found, but I didn't have the vocabulary to express my confusion. Someone, probably my father, dropped to all fours and gingerly crawled in to get me out of that apparently very dangerous place. Though I'm sure I didn't have cogent, well-formed thoughts about my predicament, somewhere in my developing mind and heart I did know that their place of danger felt like my haven. This is my earliest memory of finding a spiritual habitat in the wilderness. As a child, I canoed the rivers and hiked the trails of the Pacific Northwest with my family. I'll never forget my first pack, a child-sized Trapper Nelson. This torture device had one big sack made of tan, heavy-duty canvas and two perfectly straight wooden stakes, the ends of which rested on the packer's hips. I can still picture perfectly the two huge purple bruises on my mother's hips from carrying her adult-sized Trapper Nelson. There were times on these family outings when I resented the strenuousness of our activities, when I felt hungry and cold. And yet, when the rest of my family outgrew the outdoor adventures, I began seeking the wilderness on my own. I joined a church youth group for a while because it organized mountain climbs and backpack trips, but that ended when I argued with a church youth leader about the veracity of evolution. I didn't understand then, at the age of 12, as I don't understand now, how anyone could ever believe that science conflicts with spirituality. Science is a deep exploration and understanding of the complete miracle of our universe. The people from that church didn't agree, though, so after leaving it behind, I sought and found other wilderness trips through organizations like the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry and the American Heritage Society. Somehow, I managed to find people with whom to bicycle the Oregon coast and hike the Pacific Crest Trail until I reached the age at which I could hike, bike, and ski on my own. For many years, these forays into the forests, deserts, rivers, and mountains provided me with solace. I have always felt untethered, as if I were born wild and without a home. I assumed from a very young age that I would need to learn to survive on my own, and each trip into the wilderness was proof that I needed nothing and nobody, that breathing mountain air and walking alpine trails fulfilled me. The tremendous longing that always has accompanied me dissipated in the mountains, and I found relief, a kind of peace. My whole life I have searched for that ice cave or its equivalent, in a mountain pass or a desert night, and I often have found it, moments of grace in the wilderness. A few years ago, my wilderness trips began, occasionally, to fail me. I don't mean that I didn't make the summit or complete a route. I mean that the wilderness didn't transform me, didn't clear out my loneliness, didn't put my life in perspective. Somehow it was no longer enough to prove to myself that I had all the skills I needed to survive anywhere and any time. These trips in which I failed to find solace became more and more frequent. I had begun to feel more frightened of life and less connected to anything authentic. I felt that my achievements had been accomplished through a force of will, that determination was all that kept me going. So, 4 days before Christmas, a time when even the die-hard wilderness travelers were shopping, I drove up to the Sierras and parked my car in the lot at the foot of Hope Valley. A quick overnight, I promised myself. A little shot of serenity to get me through the rest of the holidays and to ward off the unhappy thoughts and feelings crowding me. I would straighten myself out with a couple days of backcountry skiing, a night alone in a tent, 360 degrees of mountains for 24 hours, a formula that used to work without fail. It would work this time, I told myself. It had to work. I would make it work. If I just tried harder, I could rediscover grace.